Hi, this is Tara from All Abilities. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Can you tell everybody what it is you do?
Yes, I think I wear many hats, but my educational background is I'm an occupational therapy assistant, and I also own and run an adapted gym for kids and adults with physical and intellectual disabilities.
What made you choose that population of the country?
So when I was younger, I worked as a receptionist at a local nonprofit, and I met so many families with children with disabilities, and I just fell in love with them. And I fell in love with the fact that there were these therapists that were working on these skills for them to gain independence and improve quality of life. And I really just wanted to make a difference and kind of be that person in the community that could also help and improve those things and advocate for our community that really needed a voice.
That's awesome. Can you tell us all about All Abilities?
Yes. So as I was working as an occupational therapy assistant for about 8 or 9 years, I kept running into questions from families of where their children could go or where their adult brothers or from caregivers for adults, where they could go, where they could feel like they could have an activity, they could have exercise and feel comfortable doing that. I work with a lot of children right now at All Abilities that are on the autism spectrum, and they need accommodations and some need sensory input. And parents were searching for a place to be able to do that where their children wouldn't feel judged if they had a meltdown or if they needed additional sensory things. In addition to our kids and adults that we see with some intellectual disabilities where out in the community they felt uncomfortable. So after lots and lots of research with Albernia University kind of having my back, finishing up a master's in leadership, I was able to interview and do a lot of research of the lack of opportunity in our area. And that kind of spiked the need to open a place like All Abilities. And it has been the best experience ever. My favorite thing is if I have a child or an adult and they come in and somebody says, "Oh, they'll never be able to do that. They'll never be able to accomplish that." And with patience and persistence, we have seen some of the most beautiful things come out of what we're doing. And they do accomplish that. And it might look different than how somebody else would, and that's fine. Everybody has their own journey, but it has been a really beautiful experience to see that happen.
I bet. I bet. I see some of your videos on Facebook and just love that to see the smile on everybody's face. Now,
Yeah.
we know jobs come with some issues and some things that we don't like. Can you tell us about some things about your job that may not be stellar?
Well, working as an occupational therapy assistant comes with a lot of paperwork requirements, depending on the setting you're working in. The beauty about being, we call ourselves CODAs, a certified occupational therapy assistant, is that we can work in many different areas with ages of populations from 0 to 200. So that includes long-term care, nursing homes, rehabilitation, a hospital setting, a school setting, an outpatient setting. But with all of those things comes a very, very high demand of paperwork and documentation. It's important to track goals, to see where you are, to see what you need to work on. Maybe something is too difficult. Maybe something is too easy. So we call that upgrading and downgrading an activity. And all of that comes from doing the paperwork. So I would say one of my least favorite parts is having to document everything and tracking. Depending on what setting you're in, the amount of documentation will change. I think another challenge too is sometimes getting the whole team on board with what you're working towards, whether that be, a difficulty of a parent understanding or educating them and getting the whole team on board with the goals that you're working towards.
You mentioned working with teams, and that's so important in a job. Can you tell me how you would motivate your team or deal with any problems that you would have with other people in your workplace?
I try and remind everybody on my team that we are certainly not there any day for us. This job is, and I say job very loosely because it is more of a lifestyle and a giving. So I don't think that we walk in where we're clocking in, we're clocking out, and we're just kind of like doing something like that. We are life changers, and we are the motivation and the happy smiling face. And I try and remind my staff and myself of that, even if I'm having a bad day or I'm tired or I don't really, everybody has days where they just kind of want to lay in bed and watch movies all day. But behind all of that, it is a sacrifice for us to say those emotions stay at the door. And, our kids, our families, our adults, they don't need to see that. They need to see a motivation and a happy smiling face and somebody that's going to be there for them, because we never know what anybody else is going through. So it's our job, our responsibility working in this field to make sure that we stay positive, regardless, because we want to motivate who we're working with to achieve goals. And I will be completely transparent and honest, not every day for everybody is a milestone. So we might have a situation where working as a therapist or working at All Abilities, we have a child or an adult that has a really rough day. And that's okay. So we work through it together, and we realize that we're a team, and there's going to be days that aren't the best, but there's going to be days that are better than you can even imagine.
I'm sure. Like I said, I see those smiles, and that's worth a million bad days.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You alluded to your education. Can you talk about the different education you needed in order to open your business and do the job that you do?
Sure. So the two different ways, well, the two different paths that I have taken. So I am a certified occupational therapy assistant. That degree came from Penn State Berks, and it is a 2.5-year degree, a lot of science, a lot of anatomy. And within that, on my own, I do have an undergrad in psychology, undergrad in healthcare science, and a master's in leadership. To be completely honest, to open the gym at All Abilities, I wouldn't really need any of that. I would need maybe like a business background. However, being able to have this background with accommodations and knowing how the body works and knowing how the brain processes, that has set myself and my team, who are also all occupational therapy assistants at All Abilities, up for just success with our families, with our kids, with our adults, because we have already had that experience to understand how everything is all interconnected. And we're able to put that all together because of our background. As far as being an occupational therapy assistant, that does require certification. There is a higher level of that, which is an occupational therapist, and we are required to be supervised by an occupational therapist, which is a master's in occupational therapy. And depending on what setting you're in, that supervision is different. But at All Abilities, we use our background and our skills and our knowledge set to make those accommodations for our families, but we're not practicing therapists. So we have kind of eliminated that need for a supervisor just for state regulation. So we do have a governing body in occupational therapy, and they are very serious about supervision and education. So while we don't use our degrees directly while we're working at the gym, we utilize those skills that we have learned and that we use in other parts of our lives.
Can you tell me if somebody would be interested, how they could get involved in All Abilities?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Please, if anybody is interested in learning more about what we do, there is a ton of content on our website. I try and keep that up to date as possible, and that is allabilitiesfitnesscenter.com. or by email, it's allabilitiesfitnesscenter@gmail.com. And right now, since we are doing tele-exercise, we do have the capabilities to stream. And to be completely honest, when we first started doing it, I was a little nervous about how people would be able to participate digitally. And I have been pleasantly surprised at the continued progress that the majority of our sessions are seeing, even being so far away. So it's been very humbling and a learning curve for all of us, but it's been a great experience.
You answered my next question about COVID-19 and how you're dealing with it. I think that's going to be the wave of the future, but it's also an excellent way to reach out to the youth and young adults and adults who are still looking to exercise while we self-isolate.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. Now, I will say that I will be 100% honest and say I miss I miss being in the gym setting, and I miss my kids, and I miss my adults, and there is something to say about that physical connection. As a therapist, I do use touch a lot. I use touch to position people in the way that they need to so that they can stay safe when they're doing an exercise. However, the families and the caregivers that have been involved in our digital sessions have been excellent in understanding what I need them to do, and by coaching them, they are able to position and motivate from a distance. So I'm still able to be the teacher. I'm still able to be the coach, but I'm coaching the whole family.
Well, that's positive too, so that when you're not there, they can continue the skills and the exercise and feel like they have a goal that they're working towards as a family too.
Absolutely, because even in one of my part-time jobs is I work in a school district, and if I have a session once a week, or even at All Abilities, if I have a session once or twice a week, that leaves a whole bunch of other time open where we could be working on these goals. And it has been, nice to train the families so that way they can also implement those things.
It also, I think, gives the adult or the youth a sense of accomplishment when they can work on their goals, and then they see you and they're doing better than they did in the last session.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know. No.
I just have one final question for you. If you were to talk to a future youth who wanted to go into the occupational therapy field, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them that to make sure that their main goal of working as a therapist is to help people. This is not a profession where a business or a stock market trade analysis or whatever they're called, where it is just going in for it to create a paycheck. The amount of impact that you will have on families far exceeds any amount of money you could ever bring home. So my advice would be, number one, to make sure that you are really in it for the right reasons and you really want to help people. There's going to be a lot of time that you're dedicating to a client or a patient, whatever, where you're doing that on your own because you truly want to see them successful. And my second advice would be to make sure you have a good organization system so that you can be tracking what you need to do and how that needs to get done, because it can be very overwhelming. And I guess lastly, be prepared for the amount of education that you do need. It stems everywhere from body mechanics and how the body moves and anatomy and physiology, all the way to understanding a little bit about sociology and how that works, to law, to, depending on what field you get into, there is so much education out there, and definitely be prepared to take all of that in. And while overwhelming, it really is a beautiful thing, and I would not trade this career for anything.
Oh my, I'm so glad you got to join us today, and I'm really thankful that you shared your experience. And I'm sure some of the youth that are listening to you will see you at All Abilities.
I
So,
hope so. We're ready. Where you can come see us on our tele exercise, and when the dust settles and we're back into the building, I look forward to seeing everybody's smiling faces, because I will tell you that the majority of our days are all we're all in a constant smile.
yeah, well, we will be sure to share those activities on our web pages as well. So look for them. If you don't find them in All Abilities, you can look at the Abilities in Motion website and youth groups as part of Facebook, and we'll make sure that we publish them there. Again, Tara, thank you for everything. I truly appreciate it.
Thank
Have
you
a,
very much. It
you're
was a
welcome.
pleasure.